Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to another Kano Tryharding Modern. And today, Kano falls to the dark side and plays a deck with Ragavan in it. So I had a patron deck request from Miximcz to play Murktide Regent, Izzet Murktide, and the premise was, Kano, you complain constantly about Ragavan, Dragon's Rage Channeler, Murktide Regent being broken, overpowered cards that shouldn't exist in Modern, and you don't win that often when you're playing your Tier 2 decks. So if you played Izzet Murktide, would you do better, would you do worse, etc., etc. And having never played this deck before, I took it into a league yesterday just for some testing purposes. I was like, alright, let's see how good it is. And I 5-0'd. No problem. Literally no problem at all. I think I got a little lucky in one game, but it was so much easier than any other deck I've been playing recently. So what is Izzet Murktide? Izzet Murktide is kind of the evolution of, like, Izzet Delver. It's the same sort of strategy. You play an aggressive tempo game. So you try to gain early game advantage and just snowball from that moment on. You try and draw a whole bunch of cards, you play disruptive counterspells, you protect your threats, and then you win the game. And to support that strategy, you have Dragon's Rage Channeler, which is a 1-mana 1/1. If you played Magic in Modern at all, you should know this card by now, but whenever you cast a non-creature spell, you get to Surveil, and if you have Delirium, it's a 3/3 flyer instead of a 1/1 for 1. We got Ragavan, which is a wall of text on a 1-mana red card, and this card draws you cards, gains you mana, potentially has haste, evades sorcery speed removal, does everything for 1 mana. There's a reason this card is $100 a card on Moto. And yes, I did purchase them. Yeah. I realized I had Moto sounds on, so I shut them off, just to avoid any other loudness. And then, of course, we have Murktide Regent, which makes Tombstalker look like a joke. This is a 7-mana 3/3 flyer with Delve, and if you delve an instant or sorcery exits your graveyard, it gets a 1/1 counter. So this is very, very frequently a 2-mana 8/8 flyer, which is really, really good. And that's an understatement. And, of course, we do have a singleton Brazen Borrower kind of as a hedge, additional flash threat. To support all of this, we just have really efficient spells. This deck is only playing 3 Lightning Bolts, which is almost never correct, right? When you think about it. Lightning Bolt is arguably the most broken burn spell that's ever been printed. It just kills stuff, it goes face, it puts your opponent on a short clock, it gives you tons of reach. It's very strong. But it's actually been displaced by Unholy Heat, because Unholy Heat does twice that amount of damage to creatures or planeswalkers at the same rate, for the low cost of Delirium, which is practically free in a deck like this. To support all of that, we have Consider, which is just a cantrip, helps build Delirium. It's effectively an opt, but better. We got Serum Visions, which is just the next best cantrip that we can be playing in the 1-mana slot. We got Spell Pierce to help protect our threats early. We got Counterspell, it's just the best 2-mana Counterspell. And we've got Expressive Iteration. Now, Expressive Iteration is an interesting one, being an uncommon from Strixhaven. This card's relatively new in the Modern format. I say relatively new, but I think there's been a couple of sets been released. But when you think about it, this card effectively boils down to, it's like Telling Time. So Telling Time is a blue 2-mana instant that lets you look at the top 3, put 1 in your hand, 1 on top of your deck, and 1 on the bottom of your deck. Expressive Iteration is a 2-mana sorcery that lets you look at the top 3. 1 goes to your hand, 1 goes into exile and can be played this turn, and then the other 1 goes to the bottom of the deck. And that is a significant upgrade over Telling Time, which is, outside of like some miracle usage, not really useful. Because this is effectively a 2-mana draw 2 in a deck like this. So you cast Expressive Iteration on a turn where you haven't played a land yet, and then you just throw the land in exile, you pick up whatever card you want in your hand, and then you can play the land, or combos with Mishra's Bauble and just nets you another card immediately on your opponent's upkeep, or your upkeep, depending on when you sacrifice Mishra's Bauble. It's very, very strong. We got a Singleton Archmage's Charm, which is just like our kind of... It's almost like a Cryptic Command in this deck, how some decks used to play Cryptic Command. It's just our best counterspell. It draws us cards when we need to draw cards. It steals us a threat when we need to steal a threat, and can counter a spell in case of emergency. Out of the sideboard, we've got a little bit of everything. We've got Blood Moon if we want to play a Blue Moon strategy. We only ever need 2 blue sources. We have 3 basic islands, and we have tons of fetch lands, to, of course, for Delirium purposes, to help fill the grave, for Delve. The islands are, like, if we have 2 islands, that's perfect. But even if we only have 1 island, if we hit our opponent with Ragavan, then we have a Lotus Petal that cracks for any color of mana. Which helps support all of these double, triple blue spells. So this isn't actually that greedy, and it's kind of instrumental in beating some of the greedier control decks that currently exist. We got Flusterstorm. Not really a Storm counter, because Storm isn't really a deck right now, but this is better than Spell Pierce in some circumstances. We have Dress Down, which is great against the Saga decks playing tons of Saga tokens. Occasionally this will kill some creatures whose power and toughness is reliant on some ability that they have. So like Cultivator Colossus, I'm pretty sure this will kill. I mean, you'll probably still die if you flash this in response to a Cultivator Colossus, because the triggered ability's already gone off and you've gotten Valakutted to death, but the point still stands. We got Mystical Dispute for the blue matchup. We've got Force of Negation for versus control. We've got Jace, the Mind Sculptor, which... in the matchup where we really need to play the control game, we can bring Jace in, and we can also bring in Subtlety. This is if our opponent brings in heavy Grave Hate versus us, we can actually like drop the Murktides and just bring in like these 4 cards, which is quite strong. And then we can just play like a Delver tempo control type situation. We got Relic of Progenitus for Grave Hate, and we have Engineered Explosives. Engineered Explosives, there's a lot of 1-mana permanents that we really want to kill. There's also some 0-mana permanents that are important to kill, so some of the control decks right now are playing Chalice of the Void, and you really want to play Engineered Explosives. Like, you can play it on 0 and then just immediately sack it to kill a Chalice that's set to 1, which is pretty important. It also kills things like On Thin Ice, Mana Dorks, Burn creatures... other like Yori and Flicker targets like Abundant Growth and stuff like that. And it can be scaled, so like we can play it on 2 if we need to for some reason. It's just versatile. But yeah, I think that's enough of me rambling. Let's go ahead and take this into a league and see what happens. See if Kano's actually a good Magic player. Nobody wants to queue up against me, I guess. Alright, round 1. We have an excellent hand. The only way that this hand gets better is if we'd been on the play. That's really it. We'll have to see what we're up against here, but this is definitely a good hand. It is an Urza's Saga deck. It is Amulet. Okay. So, we draw Consider. So, play Steam Vents, play Dragon's Rage Channeler, and play Mishra's Bauble. Let's go ahead and Surveil. Counterspell, I am going to put on top, and I'm going to crack it and see what my opponent's top deck is. It's Gruul Turf. So we could be in for a world of pain here in a moment, but Counterspell will be really nice in case we have to deal with any like early Primeval Titans or anything like that. So from my test league that I was playing with this deck, a big key factor in playing Izzet Murktide was really aggressively going for tempo early, but then if you have the board advantage, maintain it. Don't leave yourself open. So I'm going to attack for 1 here. But there's no reason for me to play out this Dragon's Rage Channeler. Or cast Consider, or anything like that right now. It's literally just hold up Counterspell. And drawing the second Counterspell is also extremely nice. So my opponent will have to float mana off Urza's Saga and probably go get a second Amulet here. Because they played it on turn 1, so they don't get to activate its token-making ability. An opponent plays a Simic Growth Chamber. So you're going to untap it twice, float a whole bunch of mana. Okay. They're floating mana off Talaria West, so they're probably picking up Talaria West. I expect they're going to cast a 6-mana spell here. They could transmute for the Summoner's Pact or something. Okay, prime time. Let's go ahead and counterspell. Mishra's Bauble. Don't really want to draw. I kind of want another land right now. Okay, so prime time got counterspelled. We untap. We draw Spirebluff Canal. Now, Spirebluff Canal is excellent because what that lets me do is play my other Dragon's Rage Channeler here. Go to combat. Attack for 1. Now, they have a Gruul Turf, so if they have a second Titan, they can just go for it here, which we have another counterspell, so we'd be fine. Our opponent did... I think they started on a mulligan. Okay, looks like they're going to go for it. Okay, Gruul Turf bounces Simic Growth Chamber. Second prime time. Counterspell again. Lightning Bolt. I'm going to put in the grave. I'm going to set up for a Murktide next turn, I think. So Consider's going to the grave as well. Okay. We untap. We draw a Bauble. So play Bauble. Surveil. I do want to hit Delirium if I can. So there's some notion that like maybe I keep a Lightning Bolt on top, but I don't think so. Sorcery. We don't have any sorceries in the grave yet, and this is another reason we're running Serum Visions, as opposed to just like Opt or something like that. Let's see what our opponent is drawing. Arboreal Grazer. Okay, that is not a threat to us in the slightest. So we still don't have Delirium. I think because I don't have a counterspell, it's fine to consider here. And like I'm just at this point, I do need a land, but I wanted to get I wanted to get a land in the grave without cracking Islet. I'm going to draw this Spirebluff Canal. I'm going to play it, and I'm going to play out a maximum-sized Murktide Regent. Oh, but first, I'm going to attack, because I probably don't have enough instants and sorceries to delve only those. Let's see. If I delve a whole bunch of instants... Yeah, I still have Delirium. Awesome. And we got a maximum-sized Murktide. So now my opponent can generate a huge amount of mana this turn. And I think if they have a third Primeval Titan, if they have a third Primeval Titan and a second, they don't even need a second bounce land. They're holding Simic Growth Chamber. So opponent plays Arboreal Grazer. Okay. Triggered ability. Talaria West. That's interesting. Okay, so they're going to go for a transmute play here. Okay. So they bounce Talaria West. And they Summoner's Pact. They had a Summoner's Pact. Interesting. So opponent could have gotten way greedier. This was not the line. Not the maximum line. My opponent could have like played a Simic Growth Chamber, bounced it to itself, and then Arboreal Grazered it out to get even more mana, and that would have allowed them to transmute as well. There's actually a decent chance we're dead here, because they can go get like Boros Garrison, Slayer Stronghold, or Valakut, Hanweir Garrison, whatever it's called, or Hanweir Battlements, and give Primetime Haste. And then they should be able to give it Double Strike. But I can just like block with the Murktide Regent and then kill it with Unholy Heat, but my opponent will be way ahead on board. They do have to pay for Summoner's Pact, but that won't be a problem because of all the mana they just got. Alright, opponent's getting a huge amount of mana and Hanweir Battlements. Alright, so we let them go through all these untaps. They missed floating... No, never mind. I'm just dumb. They bounce Growth Chamber. Okay. They give Primetime Haste. They're casting Summoner's Pact again. Okay. Dryad of the Elysian Grove. I guess if you're holding 2 Summoner's Pacts, you don't need to transmute. I was working under the assumption they had at most one of those. So, opponent can get 2 more lands, but even if they're both Valakut, they don't trigger. No, they can play another land because of Dryad's ability. So, if my opponent gets... Okay. Yeah, that doesn't win. I was like, they need the Double Strike in order to win. Because if they had, like, Slayer Stronghold, or if they had Sunhome and given this Double Strike, no, that doesn't work either. Yeah, no, opponent just didn't have it. Okay. I think in this matchup we will be playing Blood Moon. I think Flusterstorm, Force of Negation, and Subtlety need to come in as well. Maybe not Flusterstorm. Yeah, let's not bring in Flusterstorm. I am going to keep in the Singleton Engineered Explosives. Borrower could be important as well. Maybe bouncing like a Primetime is a line we could be on. Now I have to cut 4 cards, and the question is what? Let me see what the Primeval Titan deck could possibly sideboard. I'm just going to look up a recent list of Amulet Titan. So out of the sideboard, they might bring in Bojuka Bog. Not a lot else. I mean, they might have Force of Vigor. What is bad? Bolt is a little bit worse here than it would be otherwise. I think I'm going to cut a Serum Visions. Maybe we don't need Force of Negation. And I'm going to run 61 cards. Okay, this hand seems really good. This hand would be amazing, like possibly unbeatable if we were on the play, but we'll see how our opponent starts. Okay, they kept 7. We will keep this. Opponent starts Amulet. Now we have the option of starting Ragavan or starting Engineered Explosives, and I think it's got to be Ragavan. Pass the turn. This card is incredibly powerful if it goes unanswered. And our opponent's kind of a turn 3 deck more than anything else. So they get to play a Breeding Pool untapped for free. So we play a Scalding Tarn, go to combat, and attack for 2. We exile a Primeval Titan. That's good. That's 1 less Primeval Titan that we'll have to worry about. And then we can pass. Opponent untaps. Plays a Valakut, untaps it, and plays a Dryad. Now, Dryad is a pretty big concern, and I think I do have to counter it, as much as I would like to save this Counterspell for something else. Because I don't want them playing another land, and I don't want them turning on Valakut that quickly. Okay, so we have instant land. Let's go ahead and consider. Do I want to put Expressive Iteration into my group? No, I don't think I do. I think I want to draw that. So go to combat. Attack for 2. We get a Karn. I'm going to wish for an Engineered Explosives. I think what we do is Expressive Iteration. We will put Counterspell into our hand. Consider on the bottom, and Spell Pierce and Exile, and play Flooded Strand. Pass the turn. I'm still holding up Counterspell mana, which is excellent. Opponent plays Verdant Catacombs, cracks it, then plays Karn. Yep, I think we got to Counterspell that. And because I have Blood Moon, I should start getting basics. So Counterspell the Karn, we untap, we draw Dragon's Rage Channeler. Play Dragon's Rage Channeler. I'm going to... Not going to play anything else yet. Go to combat. Attack for 2. Take our opponent down to 13. We got an Arboreal Grazer, which is not really something I want to play. So I'm just going to shock Steam Vents and pass. Okay, opponent plays Castle Garenbrig. Then they Summoner's Pact. They get Primeval Titan. So we get to be pretty mean here. Unfortunately, I can't stop this from resolving, but we can wait for their lands to get their untap triggers, and then bounce Primeval Titan. So if my opponent goes, like, Valakut Hanweir Garrison, as an example, before the lands untap and they get the chance to give Titan haste, we can just bounce Titan, which potentially lets us enable Delirium, and, like, all sorts of craziness can happen from that point. Double Urza's Saga, huh? Hang on a sec. I think opponent just sent me. They did not. Okay. So they untap their Sagas. Their Sagas gain their first ability. Now, I don't really want to bounce Titan if I don't have to. I would much rather kill it with Unholy Heat. I could Hail Mary an Unholy Heat here, and if I hit a creature, I could just dump it into the grave. I could cast Brazen Borrower, just as is. If I do, that would let me manipulate, no, that wouldn't. if I cast Brazen Borrower, I have a maximum of 8 damage on board. I do need to answer that Titan. Opponent has to pay 4 mana for Summoner's Pact next turn. So I think we actually do cast Brazen Borrower. Untap. We draw Bauble. Perfect. There's Delirium. So play Bauble, Surveil. Fiery Islet can be put in the grave. We can Bauble our opponent's top deck. They're drawing another Primeval Titan. I'm going to play Engineered Explosives on 0 to potentially answer tokens. I'm going to put Snow-Covered Island in the grave. We will Unholy Heat Primeval Titan. Another Unholy Heat. Oh, I'm going to mill their Primeval Titan. Unfortunately, I don't have the mana to cast it. I'm 1 away. Pass the turn. So we get to draw. Opponent has to pay 4 or lose the game. We drew Murktide, which is kind of a backup plan, but I think will ultimately be unnecessary. I'm not sure what my opponent could have that would wipe the board or gain them a ton of life. Maybe a... If they had Dryad of the Elysian Grove and a second Valakut, they could kill enough of my creatures to stop me from killing them next turn. So Saga gains its next ability. I think it has to be Dryad of the Elysian Grove and Valakut for me to not win this turn. There's Dryad. And the Valakut. Unbelievable. Wow. Okay. So we really need to find a Lightning Bolt. I guess maybe No, I drew that Murktide on my opponent's turn. So that was very lucky for the opponent. We untap. We draw Blood Moon. So blue, exile a bunch of stuff out of our grave. Get a big old Murktide. Then I think due to time stamping, this makes my opponent's lands mountains. Yep, it does. Pass the turn. So now my opponent has to answer an 8/8 without the use of their lands, which is going to be very difficult for them. And they scoop, giving us round 1, 2-0. We're off to an excellent start. I'll see you guys in round 2. All right, we are on the draw versus probably a Tron deck. That's the only one I know that plays this particular companion, but it could be like a 5-color deck. We will be keeping this hand. This hand is pretty good. It's not amazing, but it's pretty good. Opponent leads on Power Plant. Chromatic Star. All right. Since it is very unlikely that my opponent's going to have an answer for Ragavan, I'm just going to play out a turn 1 Ragavan. So I don't really want to draw an island, so I'm actually going to fetch here. Shock of Steam Vents. That's another thing that about Bauble and fetch lands that's very good. Like, you can kind of see what your next draw is going to be and get rid of it. So Murktide Regent will be very useful. Opponent cracks for green, Ancient Stirrings. They reveal a tower and play another star. We untap, we draw Consider. So Shock Steam Vents, go to combat. Hit our opponent for 2. We exile their Sanctum of Ugin. Pass the turn. Leave up Counterspell. Opponent cycles for green. If this is a Sylvan Scrying, it's getting countered. Yep. Sad I have to use a Counterspell on that particularly, but ultimately I think it will be fine. Everything will be fine. We untap. We draw Snow-Covered Island. So go to combat. Attack for 2. Let's see what we hit. Sylvan Scrying. I kind of want to draw another Counterspell if I can, so I'm going to try and consider for it. We'll put Bauble in the grave. Get Misty. Play Misty. Crack it. Get a basic island, and play Murktide Regent. Leaving up both treasures. Pass the turn. So we have our opponent on a clock now. Short of 3rd Tron land into Ulamog, we're probably safe. But they get a few redraws here to try and find it. They got Tron. 7 mana for a Karn Liberated. So they're probably going to downtick on Murktide here. Seems most reasonable to me. Yep, okay. We untap. We draw a Counterspell. Just a little late. Play Snow-Covered Island. Go to combat. Attack our opponent. We get an Oblivion Stone. There's an idea. So, Lightning Bolt Karn, and I am going to play Oblivion Stone, because it is technically an answer to, like, Ugin, if our opponent plays an Ugin. That we don't, or like an Ugin after we counterspell or something like that. So third tower, actually I think it's the fourth. No, it's the third. Okay. So opponent plays Karn, Great Creator, I will counterspell. Because otherwise that shuts off our treasure tokens and Oblivion Stones and stuff. But this could be a Worm Coil follow-up, which I really feel like it is. And that's also very difficult for us to deal with. Yes. So, had we not counterspelled the Karn, we couldn't have counterspelled Worm Coil. But that's really tough. Let's play Misty, crack Misty, get an island, and pass the turn. I'm probably going to put a Fate counter on Ragavan here. We take 6, go to 7. The way that we beat this is by, like, stealing a Karn Liberated from our opponent. Second Worm Coil? Oh my gosh, okay. And they put Gigantha in their hand. So let's put a Fate counter on Ragavan. We untap. We draw Consider, so let's Consider. I will put Serum Visions into the grave. We get Expressive Iteration, so let's do that. I'm going to put Unholy Heat in my hand, put a Flooded Strand on the bottom of my deck, and exile another Expressive Iteration, which I will cast. I'll put Murktide in my hand, Serum Visions on the bottom, and exile Spirebluff. Play Spirebluff, and pass the turn. I was really hoping to hit another Unholy Heat there. So the way that we're going to win this is by dodging a big Planeswalker threat, and killing both Worm Coil engines with Unholy Heats. I'm going to 1, and then using Oblivion Stone to, like, clean up the tokens. Okay, 8 mana Lightning Bolt, we're dead. Okay, so we did get a little bit unlucky there. Opponent did get lucky. I'm going to bring in Force of Negation. I'm going to bring in Subtlety. Blood Moon seems important versus the Tron deck. Let me think. We'll be on the play. What would Tron bring in against Murktide? I should know this, considering how much Tron that I actually play. Of course, the last Tron list I was playing was kind of jank. So they mainly play a Wishboard, but they will bring in Warping Whale. I may want Flusterstorm because of that. I mean, honestly, if we can get down a Blood Moon and just slow them down, we should win. I don't think I want Engineered Explosives. Lightning Bolt is important, especially if they do end up having Grave Hate and, like, shutting off Unholy Heat. Borrower can be good. Counterspell will be really important, especially on the play. So I think I cut a Serum Visions and a Consider. I think I'm actually going to cut another Consider. Okay. And running 61 cards because I'm bad at this game. Alright, I would like to play first. This hand is unfortunately not keepable. We will mulligan. This hand has potential, but it's still not great. I'm not sure that this is good. We really need a 1-mana threat. Okay, I can work with this. We will keep. I'm going to put back Polluted Delta and Serum Visions. So we will start Flooded Strand, fetch, Shock Steam Vents, Dragon's Rage Channeler, Bauble, Surveil, Blood Moon to the top, and crack looking at our opponent's top deck, which is Urza's Mine. Pass the turn. Opponent's turn. They play an Urza's Mine. We untap. We draw Expressive Iteration. Play Fiery Islet. And I think I am going to go for Expressive Iteration here, because I really want to draw a third land for this Blood Moon. So Surveil, Counterspell's good, but not on the Blood Moon plan. One of them into my hand. It's got to be that one. We'll put Consider into the exile zone. Go to combat, hit them for 3. Opponent untaps. They play a Power Plant and a Chromatic Star. We untap, we draw Steam Vents. So Flooded Strand, fetch, get an island. Blood Moon, Surveil, Polluted Delta into the grave. Blood Moon resolves, go to combat, hit them for 3. Now the good news is we have Spell Pierce. So as long as my opponent does not have a Wilt this turn or a Nature's Claim this turn, we can Spell Pierce any sort of removal for Blood Moon while beating down. So opponent does Sylvan Scrying for basic forest. That is reasonable. They play it. We untap. We draw a Lightning Bolt. Play Steam Vents. Go to combat. Attack for 3. No reason to use the Lightning Bolt yet. Now, if my opponent plays 4 mana Karn, I think I am going to Spell Pierce it rather than Bolt it, because I don't want them wishing for another thing that I'm going to have to answer. It's a card that will replace itself. Yeah. So go ahead and Spell Pierce. Get to Surveil because of it. Polluted Delta into the grave. Now, I could get aggressive and Bolt here to try and manipulate and get a better top deck, and I think that's reasonable. Unholy Heat. I think I do keep an Unholy Heat here. It can't go face, but it does kill a lot of things we would consider a problem. Go to combat. Hit them for 3. Take them to 5. Pass the turn. Opponent untaps. They could put, like, Gigantha in their hand this turn. Ancient Stirrings. Well, I don't think Ancient Stirrings can pick up an answer to Blood Moon, unless there's one that I'm not thinking. I mean, they could get an Oblivion Stone. That would be their best play here. Okay, Chromatic Sphere. They play Sanctum of Ugin, 4 mana for a Karn Great Creator. They wish. Wormcoil won't save them. Let's see what they grab, and we can make our decision on whether or not we need to save this Unholy Heat. So I think they have to get Walking Ballista. Yeah, okay, they got Walking Ballista. Because they have to have a 6th land, and then they have to burn all of their mana to kill this single Dragon's Rage Channeler. So I'm going to kill Karn, so I can get a Surveil here, manipulate my top deck. This is so strong. Second Unholy Heat is kind of unnecessary here. I would rather draw another threat or a Lightning Bolt and just finish this game. We draw a Scalding Tarn, which is neither of those things. Go to combat. Hit them for 3. So they have to play Walking Ballista on 3, I think is their answer, because nothing else saves them. But they give up their Walking Ballista in the process. If we draw Lightning Bolt, if we draw Ragavan, they would be dead, but we unfortunately didn't draw either, so go to combat. We have to attack if able, so opponent has to ping it down. Letting us untap with Dragon's Rage Channeler and draw a card was definitely not correct, because that potentially let me like manipulate my top deck an extra time. So go to our second main and play out our other Dragon's Rage Channeler, pass the turn. So we don't have to worry about this Walking Ballista anymore. Wormcoil does not save them because we have a flying creature. They need like land Karn Liberated, or Nature's Claim, activate Blast Zone would do it. Okay, opponent plays Karn, wishes with Karn. They have 2 mana left over. I'm not sure what they could get at this point, having already used their Walking Ballista. They could get like Liquimetal Coating, but that doesn't do anything. They don't have enough mana, and they have too many cards in their hand for Ensnaring Bridge. Yep, okay. Cool, so it's on to Game 3. Now, Game 3, we're going to be on the draw, which is significantly... it's going to be significantly harder for us to win. But do we change it up at all? I think the answer is no. Now, I could be playing Dress Down as a pseudo-answer for Wormcoil, because it would stop like my opponent's life linking, which is the big problem with Wormcoil. But I don't think we do. I think we just run it back. But that would be that's the only option I'm considering that I don't have in the deck already. Okay, I think this hand is good, so I will keep. Opponent leads on Tower Map. We draw Expressive Iteration. So we're going to lead on Steam Vents, Ragavan. Pass the turn. It is not a turn 3 Tron. We untap and draw Bauble. Play Bauble. Go to combat. Hit our opponent for 2. We get a treasure. We exile a Wormcoil. I think that lets my opponent wish for it later, potentially. Crack Polluted Delta. I'm going to Bauble my opponent, which is why I'm doing this. I could have Baubled myself to see if I wanted to crack Polluted Delta, but I want to preserve this treasure token more than I want to do that. And I would counterspell a Warping Whale here if my opponent had it. I get a Snow-Covered Island, and we're going to cast Serum Visions. I'm already holding a Murktide Regent. I just drew a land, which is excellent. So I'm going to bottom both of these I'm looking for another counterspell at this point. Okay, let's bauble my opponent's top deck. It is a land. So they're probably just going to... Oh, I should have waited for them to crack map. That's actually a punt. Because I knew that they were going to crack map. Because if they had whale, they would have tried to do something sooner. Okay, we get Dragon's Rage Channeler, which is pretty excellent here. Opponent plays Power Plant, Chromatic Star, Relic of Progenitus. Okay. They may just cycle Relic, which wouldn't be that bad, but... Okay, we draw Fiery Islet. So play a Spirebluff Canal. Go to combat. Attack our opponent for 2. We exile an Urza's Mine. Play Dragon's Rage Channeler and pass. They're going to make us exile a card from our grave, exile the Polluted Delta. Like, we don't need Delirium to win right now. Okay, opponent Ancient Stirrings. That's fine. They get an Urza's Mine. Okay, so that's Tron assembled. They play Karn, Great Creator, which we will counterspell for reasons previously stated. I don't want it replacing itself, basically. Oh, this could be a Veil, then. Okay, it is a Veil. Unholy Heat. I do want to draw another Unholy Heat. But what this does mean is whatever they wish for, which is probably the Worm Coil I exiled, they can't play this turn. I should have floated a red, actually, with this treasure token, but I did not do that. Chalice. Chalice on 1. Okay. So we untap. I can Unholy Heat to mill Unholy Heat, which is, I think, what I'm going to do here. Because I can build Delirium this way and kill Karn. Second Expressive Iteration just makes this easier. I was still considering like maybe playing Murktide this turn and just swinging both at Karn Great Creator, but that is uncastable, so it goes to the grave. One of them into my hand, that will be Counterspell. One of them onto the bottom, Lightning Bolt, exile Consider. Play Fiery Islet. Oh, that's not Delirium, actually. Okay, well, it did get easier anyway. Go to combat. Kill Karn. Unfortunately not hitting our opponent. And we can leave up Counterspell. My opponent will certainly crack Relic next turn. There's no way they don't. Oh, I could have cycled Fiery Islet, but that would have taken me off Counterspell? No, it wouldn't have. I could have cycled Fiery Islet, hit my opponent with Ragavan, and gotten another treasure. So I guess that may technically have been a punt. I'm not immune to punts, even with good decks. Opponent plays Sanctum of Ugin. 8 mana, they play Ugin the Spirit Dragon. Let's see what they resolve Sanctum and get. It's probably going to be Ulamog. It is. Okay. So we counterspell Ugin. Dragon's Rage Channeler mills Dragon's Rage Channeler. So we do have Delirium now. We need to find Blood Moon. So Bauble first. Mill Lightning Bolt. See what our opponent's top deck is. It is a Chromatic Sphere. Expressive Iteration. Spirebluff Canal into the grave. I will put Ragavan in my hand. I will put Ragavan on the bottom of the library and exile Spirebluff. Play Spirebluff. And then, because I don't have Blood Moon, and I cannot play Blood Moon, if I sack Fiery Islet, I'm just going to delve Murktide here and make a really big one. Go to combat. Hit our opponent for 5, which is likely just 3. We have to pray that they do not... well, they waited until after Murktide hit the board. We do kind of have to pray that they don't get a Tron land, which I think we just exiled one. Turn off auto yields. I just drew Counterspell. It's so huge. I think I exiled a Tron land. So they're going to exile probably Dragon's Rage Channeler and Murktide. Oh, Ragavan and Murktide. Okay. Well, Miracle Counterspell off the top. We get to Surveil. Polluted Delta goes to the grave. Okay, we lose our guys. Untap. We draw Dragon's Rage Channeler. So, sack Fiery Islet. We get Unholy Heat. Dash Ragavan. Oh, we can't. Chalice. Hit them for 1. I completely forgot Chalice was on the board. Kozilek, Butcher of Truth. Okay, what that means is we're probably in some pretty deep trouble. I'm going to Unholy Heat, just for the Surveil. Expressive Iteration to the top. Unholy Heat gets countered. Untap. I need to hit Brazen Borrower off of this Expressive Iteration. So Surveil, Force Negation to the bottom, or to the graveyard. That is nothing like what I need. So Steam Vents, play Steam Vents. This does not have reach, but the reach isn't really what I'm worried about. It's the Annihilator. And the fact that my opponent has active Tron plus and a million things to do with their mana because they just drew so many cards. I still have the out of drawing a Brazen Borrower. We go to 3. I'm dead to Ugin, Karn Great Creator. I'm also dead to Walking Ballista. So, GG opponent. I did my best, but I think Tron prevails here because this is game 3. I'm a little sad that it's Gigantha-Tron because I think Gigantha is strictly incorrect to play in Sideboard. But, well, we're 1-1. I'll see you guys in round 3. All right. So, round 3. And I think this hand's okay. It's not insane. Especially not for turn 1 on the play, but we do have stuff we can do. Okay, so lead on Scalding Tarn, pass the turn. Another Tron deck. All right, so we get the option for redemption here. Let's try it. Let's go ahead and consider. Spirebluff Canal. Yeah, we're going to go ahead and mill Spirebluff Canal. We draw Island anyway. Now, if I wanted to be a real jerk, I could Brazen Borrower this map. If we'd gotten a Bauble, I could play Murktide this turn. Let me think about this. If I leave up Counterspell, they're just going to crack map. Expressive Iteration's much worse when you play the land the turn that you play Expressive Iteration. Yeah, actually, I'm going to Petty Theft this. And it's really petty, but that is our best play that turn. Opponent replays Expedition Map, plays Blast Zone. So we did take them pretty far off of assembling Tron quickly. Okay, we draw a Bauble. So, play Flooded Strand, play Bauble, Bauble our opponent. They're drawing Expedition Map. Okay. Fetch up a Steam Vents tapped, and we're going to go with Murktide Regent here. Not a crazy big Murktide, but something to put the pressure on. Okay. On our opponent's turn, we draw Polluted Delta. They sack Sphere for green and concede. All right. Well, this is not Gigantha-Tron. I'm going to bring in Blood Moon. I'll bring in Subtlety as well. And Force of Negation. I'm going to cut... I may need Engineered Explosives, the Singleton. So I'm going to cut 2 Considers. I'm going to leave the Serum Visions in. And I'm going to cut 1 Murktide. Try like this. No threats. We have a Counterspell. I think we can do better. I'm going to mulligan. I really want a 1-mana threat. This works. I will keep. I'm going to put back a Lightning Bolt. And the reason I put back a Lightning Bolt is because I really want another blue spell, potentially for this Force of Negation. Okay, no turn 1 play from our opponent. Draw Ragavan, number 3, Ragavan Tron versus Ragavan, or versus Tron, excuse me. Play Ragavan, pass the turn. I would Force of Negation a Warping Whale, just so people know that if it happens, it's not some shoot from the hip play. Okay. We untap. We draw Scalding Tarn, which makes our hand a whole lot better. Play Scalding Tarn, go to combat. Hit our opponent for 2. Get a treasure token, exiling Urza's Mine. And I think I'm just going to go for the Blood Moon play here. Like, it's possible my opponent has Force of Negation, or Force of Vigor, I mean, but it's too valuable to not attempt here. Okay, another Urza's Tower. We untap. This is unfortunately the one time that Ragavan is like not that great to have, is when you have all of the multiples of Ragavan in your hand. We hit their Veil of Summer. Pass the turn. Okay, opponent plays Chromatic Sphere, that's fine. And if my opponent casts something like a Wilt and I want to cast Force Negation, I'm not going to pitch here, I'm actually just going to play it. Opponent casts Ancient Stirrings. They get a basic Forest, which is pretty big. That does enable them to start casting some of their other plays. Sylvan Scrying. Now that I don't so much care about. That I will let them have. Okay, we untap. Draw Polluted Delta, play Polluted Delta, and the trick now is to just never tap out of our Counterspell. Hey, an Oblivion Stone. Play Oblivion Stone, pass the turn. Opponent plays their Power Plant. Karn, Great Creator. Yeah, that I will counter. And hopefully they don't have a Veil of Summer for this. Okay. They don't... Generally, Tron does not play that many. They play 3 at most, and a lot of recent lists have not been playing it in such numbers. Okay. Go to combat, hit our opponent for 2. We get a Worm Coil Engine. Now there's an idea. We can speed up this clock. Okay. Ancient Stirrings by the opponent. They get an Oblivion Stone, but will it be fast enough? Oh, you know what's funny? I could put a Fate counter on Blood Moon. Okay, we untap, we draw Spirebluff Canal. So, play Spirebluff Canal, go to combat, attack, attack. Opponent cycles for green. We get an Expedition map. That is actually useful, because I can go get another basic island here. Pass the turn. Opponent untaps. They play a Power Plant. So I think their best play would be like Karn Liberated down tick on Wormcoil. If they just go to activate O-Stone, they lose. They're going to try and activate it on my turn. Okay, we untap, draw Counterspell, play an island, go to combat, attack, attack. So now we just put a Fate counter on Wormcoil. Yeah, that's right, I play those cards. I know what they do. I don't have to read them. Alright, so we immediately redeem ourselves against Tron. That's more how I expect the Tron matchup to go. That's certainly how it goes whenever I'm on the receiving end of Izzet Murktide playing Tron, but I'll see you guys in round 4. Alright. We are on the play for round 4 versus Rudokant. I have no idea what deck they're playing, but I will be keeping this, even though it seems greedy as heck, because this gives us like 3 top deck manipulations to try and find, opponent exiles Brazen Borrower to Gemstone Caverns. This is probably Rhinos or Living Blue or whatever it's called. The Living End deck that plays all the pitch spells. Play Dragon's Rage Channeler, play Bauble, Surveil, Polluted Delta to the top, please? Yep, it is definitely the Cascade deck. So they're drawing Prismari Command, that's fine. Okay, we draw Polluted Delta. Opponent plays Scalding Tarn, we untap. We draw Misty. I think that's slightly too many lands, but I'm not going to complain too hard about it. Get an island. Pass the turn. So now we are playing the control role. We know our opponent has a Prismari Command. They play a Misty. And they pass. We draw Spirebluff, play Spirebluff. Pass the turn. We do have to be careful, basically never tapping out now, because we cannot really deal with Rhinos. I mean, I can Unholy Heat them, but that's about it. And I don't want to spend 2 kill spells to answer 1 spell from the opponent. So opponent fetches twice, then untaps. I was thinking they were going to cast Prismari Command and go looting or something. Okay, they don't do anything on their turn. They passed ours. So we play a Misty, crack Misty, get another basic island. And if I play Murktide, it's just going to be a 3/3, which I think they have answers to, but I also think it's probably fine. Because at this point, they would have to have Violent Outburst and like Force of Negation for backup for this play to be bad. Petty Theft, they're going to bounce Murktide. Yeah, that's fine. That's not worth counterspelling. Like, Brazen Borrower is not a threat. We can just kill it. They did delay us a long time playing Murktide, but Blood Moon, do I care? I mean, we play Blood Moon, and that does significantly limit when I can counterspell. I think we let that resolve. Now, if we can draw like a Ragavan or something, that'd be great. Get another counterspell. I'm going to take a risk here in Expressive Iteration, taking myself off counterspell for a turn. One of them in my hand, Murktide. One of them on the bottom, Murktide. Exile Bauble. Play Bauble. Bauble my opponent. Shardless Agent. Alright, that's a bit of a problem. Because that does mean they are cascading 100% next turn, and we will have to expend a lot of resources to kill everything that comes out of that. Also, with Blood Moon on the board, it will be much more difficult for us to get a land in the grave for delirium purposes. So, Crashing Footfalls. Bolt Shardless Agent. We untap. We draw Flooded Strand. Play Spirebluff. So Unholy Heat's not going to kill anything anytime soon. But I can still leave it up as a trick. And I can play a creature that is bigger than their rhinos. So they can probably trade off with like a Fire and Ice here. Or they just hit their third Brazen Borrower of the game. Which, I mean, is... that'll do it. They're going to hit us for 8. So that makes everything we were doing significantly worse. And we're dead. Yeah, we're dead. Okay. Maybe not counterspelling Blood Moon was a problem there, but not entirely convinced. Subtlety. Let me look at the Crashing Footfalls deck. The Crashing Footfalls deck, I would say, is among the most unfair of decks. Because it plays all the same sort of interaction that we play generally with like powerful counterspells and whatnot. But it also puts 8 power on the board that tramples at instant speed. It's a lot easier to disrupt because it's a very linear game plan. But so opponent's going to be bringing in any number of like Blood Moons, Mystical Disputes, Thruns. They could bring in a Chandra, Awakened Inferno. What do we want here? I think we want Force of Negation. We may want Jace. I think we want Flusterstorm, and we want Mystical Dispute. I think Lightning Bolt is coming out almost entirely, because Lightning Bolt does not kill the Rhinos. It doesn't kill Endurance, and it doesn't kill Fury, and it definitely doesn't kill Thrun. I may want another Engineered Explosives just to kill more Rhinos. I don't know what I would take out for that, though. Like, maybe a Bauble? Okay, we'll try it like this. I would like to play first. I will keep this hand, even though it has no interaction. I'm expecting my opponent to have at least one dead and gone, so I'm going to lead on Dragon's Rage Channeler here. Okay, they suspend a Crashing Footfalls. We untap. We draw Unholy Heat. Play Spirebluff Canal. Let's go ahead and dash a Ragavan here. Go to combat. Attack for 3. Okay, we exile a Breeding Pool off the top of their deck. Pick Ragavan back up. Crashing Footfalls ticks down to 3. Opponent plays a Scalding Tarn. And passes. We untap. We draw Mystical Dispute, which will be a pretty big deal, I think. I suspect my opponent has Fire. If they do, we want to attack first. We're not going to dash Ragavan, but we will cast Ragavan. Play Scalding Tarn. Cast Ragavan. Okay, put a crack Scalding Tarn. Gets a mountain. Fire, kill both creatures. So we will... we are going to go for the Mystical Dispute here. And we're getting a basic island because there's Blood Moons technically available somewhere. Brazen Borrower I'm going to put on top. Because Brazen Borrower's front half Petty Theft can deal with a Rhino. Okay. Opponent Shardless Agent. They cascade. get some Rhinos. We untap. We draw a Brazen Borrower. So let's go ahead and Petty Theft a Rhino and Surveil, see what we can put in the grave. It's just a land. That does mean that we cannot activate Dragon's Rage Channeler this turn. So I think we just play Steam Vents tapped and pass, which is way more anemic than I want it to be, but maybe playing into that fire that we knew about was wrong. Maybe we were supposed to leave Mystical Dispute for like a second Footfalls off a Cascade or something. That is possible. And that would come from just inexperience playing the deck. I'm going to Unholy Heat Shardless Agent here to get the Surveil trigger and some guaranteed value. Another Murktide Regent. I'm probably going to be only able to cast this one. They kill my guys. They get in for 4. They're going to take me to 15. We untap. We draw Engineered Explosives, which is actually enormous here. So the first thing we're going to do is, in case they do have a counterspell of some kind, we'll play Murktide Regent, play Engineered Explosives on 0, pass the turn, Footfalls coming off Suspend, and I am going to detonate Explosives immediately, I think. Yeah, I'm not even going to block, because the odds that they have like another Dead and Gone or another Fire and Ice is pretty high up there. They can just Cascade again. That was the risk. Alright, we untap. We draw Spell Pierce. That's kind of unfortunate we didn't have that sooner. So we need to attack here. And we're going to need to draw... I think I took a Lightning Bolt out completely, which if I did, that's kind of a big mistake. But we're going to need to rely on Brazen Borrower and Spell Pierce to get us across the finish line here. So opponent can attack and hit us for 10. We go to 5. Okay, on our opponent's end step, Brazen Borrower. They would have to have a 3-mana answer for us to Spell Pierce this. That works. Spell Pierce gone? Oh my gosh, that was close. Okay, I'm bringing in the last Engineered Explosives with how good that was. I also really missed the bolts for reach there, but I'm going to cut Flusterstorm, and I think I'm going to drop a Consider for a bolt. And still running 61 cards post-sideboard because I'm bad at this game. Opponent being on the play is pretty bad for us, but this is also a pretty good opener. So we're going to keep. Opponent leads on Misty Rainforest, fetches. Forest, plays Crashing Footfalls. We untap, we draw Mystical Dispute. So play Spirebluff Canal, play Dragon's Rage Channeler, cast Bauble, Surveil. Unholy Heat gets a little early for Unholy Heat, so we're going to put that one in the grave. And I'm going to immediately Bauble my opponent's Steam Vents. And the reason being is because I do have Force of Negation in this deck. So, like, there's some consideration that maybe I do want a card even when I'm tapped out. We draw a Counterspell, which is pretty good. Opponent plays Scalding Tarn and passes. We untap. We draw another Dragon's Rage Channeler. Play Fiery Islet. Go to combat. Attack for 1. Take our opponent to 18. Pass the turn. Opponent cracks Scalding Tarn for Steam Vents tapped. They untap, Footfalls ticking down. And they play a Stomping Ground tapped. We untap. We draw a Lightning Bolt. Play Snow-Covered Island. Go to combat. Attack for 1. Pass the turn. Okay, Crashing Footfalls goes to 1. Opponent plays a Steam Vents tapped. On their end step, I will Lightning Bolt them. Polluted Delta, I will put to the top. We untap, we draw Polluted Delta. Play Polluted Delta, fetch. Get an island. Play second Dragon's Rage Channeler. Go to combat. Hit our opponent for 1. They go to 12, pass the turn. They untap. Footfalls coming off Suspend. Footfalls gets cast, so we're going to try Counterspell here. 2 Surveil triggers. Opponent Mystical Disputes our Counterspell. I could Mystical Dispute their Mystical Dispute, which I actually think is reasonable here. Because that gives us a ton of top deck manipulation and it would force them to tap out. Now, if they have a Fire and Ice to follow up and we don't get Delirium, that would be awful. Yeah, we want to put that Counterspell in the grave, unfortunately. Okay, they pay for Mystical Dispute. Man, I missed a spell, but Mystical Dispute is technically better. Okay, they Counterspell. Channeler. Charm is pretty good. I'm going to put Charm on top of my deck. Unfortunately, that does mean our Dragon's Rage Channelers do not get big. We draw Archmage's Charm. Cast a Ragavan. I could just steal a Rhino here. If I'm going to try, I should try it now because the odds that I get something I can put in the grave off of these Channelers to get them to turn into 3/3 flyers to end the game is pretty high. Still no creatures or anything we can put in the grave. I could Legend Rule my Ragavan, but 5 mana for a Fury. So I can kill all 3 of my X1s. That is tremendous on the part of the opponent. Opponent goes to combat, does not attack. We untap. We draw nothing. Sack Fiery Islet. We get Unholy Heat. So go to combat. Attack for 4. No blocks for the opponent. That's interesting. Play Spirebluff Canal tapped. Pass the turn. Opponent is going to Petty Theft the Rhino token. Well, it works just as well for them as it does for us. I have to hope that they're not going to play a creature somehow that isn't Brazen Borrower, because this should allow me to sneak in with Ragavan to get 1 hit in. I'm going to Unholy Heat the 3/3 Double Strike to save myself 6 damage. Unless they Counterspell, and they do. Okay, we take 10. Draw Spell Pierce. I would have to hit something of my opponent's that can answer one of their creatures or kill them. And we did not. So we are dead. Very unfortunate. I think I played really greedy this game. We did not hit anything. Like, in the amount of cards I overturned with 2 Dragon's Rage Channelers, the odds that I don't get Delirium is practically 0 in like the top 8 cards when I'm at 3 card types. So I actually think I lost that due to variance, but you could make the argument that I was playing greedily, and I think you could do so successfully. So, alright. I will see you guys in round 5. Alright. Round 5, and it looks like we're against Control, because that's the only thing that plays Kahira anymore. They just play it as a card, basically, to pitch to Solitude. And versus Control, this is not a very good hand. Us being on the draw is not very good either, but we're going to have to try and make it work. I will be keeping this and putting back an island. Opponent leads on Misty Rainforest. We draw Serum Visions. So let's go ahead and Dragon's Rage Channeler. There's some argument that maybe I should have waited until turn 2 to play Dragon's Rage Channeler, just so I could play a spell alongside it. But opponent cracks Misty to get Ragavan Triome. Plays another Misty Rainforest. Prismatic Endings are threat, which is pretty bad for us because we don't have another threat. We draw Counterspell, so Spirebluff Canal to the bottom, Ragavan to the top, pass the turn. Opponent cracks Misty, gets Breeding Pool. They untap. They play Mystic Gate. Pass the turn. We draw Ragavan, so play Fiery Islet. And I am going to actually just cast Ragavan here. I'm really telegraphing hard that I have a Counterspell, but I still think this is the correct play. Okay, opponent is going to attempt an Archmage's Charm, so we're going to Counterspell. That would have been really bad for us had that resolved. I mean, we could have just Unholy Heat to kill Ragavan, obviously, but That's not where we want to be. We do not want to be casting our removal spells on our own threats. Okay, they put Kahira in their hand, and pitch Kahira to Solitude to exile Ragavan. We untap and draw Steam Vents, so sack Fiery Islet, get a Bauble, play Bauble, Bauble our opponent, they're drawing Hallowed Fountain, shock Steam Vents, pass the turn, we draw another land, oh no. The good news is, if they play a big Planeswalker threat, we can kill it. They're going to Spreading Seas to cantrip, that's fine, we don't mind having an island. They played the Hallowed Fountain, we knew they drew. They pass, we untap. We draw Murktide Regent. So play Murktide Regent. Pass the turn. Opponent untaps. Plays a Flooded Strand. Seems like our opponent is drawing a lot of lands right now. Counterspell was possibly our best top deck. Attack our opponent for 5. They go to 13, pass the turn. They crack Flooded Strand, get an island, untap. They play a Plains. They are now casting a spell. Big Teferi. Well, Counterspell. Dovin's Veto. Okay. And they're going to tick down on Murktide. And we're going to go ahead and Unholy Heat Teferi. We untap. We draw Consider. Consider. Counterspell. No, I actually want to draw Counterspell. Next turn, we're drawing Murktide. So we can have Murktide Counterspell again. And this Murktide can actually be bigger, because we'll have more things to delve for it. I think the clock still remains the same, but... Oh, we have to go shields down for 1 turn, because of how much mana we have, but... Pass the turn. Opponent's top deck. Well, that's a pretty good top deck. They bounce Murktide, draw a card. We untap and get an Archmage's Charm. Kill Teferi. Thankfully that went through, because otherwise these counterspells would be worthless. They're going to Spreading Seas to take me off of red. While irritating, I don't think I counter this. Opponent plays a land and is passing. Well, on their end step, let's go ahead and Divination. They counterspell our Divination. We untap, we draw Flooded Strand, play Flooded Strand, crack Flooded Strand, get a Steam Vents. Going shields down once more. Just have to fade 1 top deck. It's like a Prismatic Ending, wouldn't do anything here. Archmage's Charm is a really good top deck, giving our opponent 2 new cards. Okay, we untap, draw Dragon's Rage Channeler, play Dragon's Rage Channeler, go to combat, attack for 5. Now, the reason I played Dragon's Rage Channeler rather than keep it in reserve is because 1, my graveyard is completely empty right now, and 2, if my opponent does cast something I need to counterspell, I kind of want to manipulate my top deck to make sure that I draw something relevant. Opponent plays Teferi, Time Raveler. Well, if we don't counterspell this, we aren't counterspelling anything this turn. They counterspell our counterspell. We surveil. I actually kind of want Consider for the card selection. This is like scrying a Preordain to the top if Dragon's Rage Channeler sticks around, and it should. We just need to draw a Lightning Bolt if our opponent has no other answers. Okay, they had another answer. We draw Consider, so cast Consider. Put Polluted Delta into the grave. We draw Scalding Tarn. Crack Scalding Tarn. Get an island. Delve out of Murktide. Our opponent has 1 draw. They uptick Teferi. Oh my gosh. Come on. They found their 1 draw. So play Bauble. Unfortunately, because of Little Teferi, Bauble here does not stop us, or does not allow us to like draw a Lightning Bolt to kill Teferi. And our opponent is top decking a Shark Typhoon. Opponent shuffles away Shark Typhoon. We draw a useless counterspell. They did put themselves in Lightning Bolt range now. So We know not this draw, but next draw will be a... No, this draw is Murktide, isn't it? Which, even if we play Murktide, they'll just bounce it with Little Teferi if they're desperate. So, delve out a Murktide. Believe that's the 4th counterspell, is it? It's the 3rd counterspell. Oh, they had a Dovin's Veto, that's why. They upticked Teferi to 4. Just need me that Lightning Bolt. That's all we need. Come on. I always die to Lightning Bolt in that position. Show me the Lightning Bolt. Yes! Oh, it's not just me. Lightning Bolt. Are you kidding me? They still have counterspells? And I can't counterspell back because they frickin' still have Little Teferi on board. Oh my gosh. Come on. Yes, I know they played Castle Vantress. Yes, they were smart enough to Castle Vantress Scry prior to drawing with Teferi, Hero of Dominaria. That's so frustrating. Opponent bounces Spreading Seas, draws a card. They're going to replay Spreading Seas and draw a card. There's no way they don't have another counterspell. Like, we have to draw another bolt and basically just try again. They take me off more red mana. We draw nothing of consequence, pass the turn, and I think that's it. I think we're dead this game. That is a life-linking creature. Okay, I am going to bring in Subtlety because it is kind of our way to Force of Negation a Solitude, if that makes sense. I may want Jace, but I kind of would rather go the tempo game and try and play Blood Moons and stuff. I'm going to cut a couple of Considers. Cut one Unholy Heat in this matchup. Unholy Heat is really good, but I think in this matchup, having the 3 damage versus 2 damage in the event that my opponent has Grave Hate, there's more. I'm going to cut an Engineered Explosives. Oh, and Spell Pierce is coming out for, I think, Mystical Dispute entirely. That's somewhat questionable, but I think in the average case, this is fine. We'll play first. Opponent played the full playset of Counterspell. We've got double Ragavan into Counterspell, so I think we got to keep this. So, fetch, shock, Ragavan, pass the turn. Opponent starts Misty, fetch, shock, Prismatic Ending. Yep. Alright, we untap. We draw Spirebluff Canal, play it, dash Ragavan. So they would have to have Solitude. Okay, we exiled Supreme Verdict, which is, I think, a pretty good exile. Okay, they play a Flooded Strand. We untap, we draw Lightning Bolt, play an island, dash Ragavan, go to combat, attack for 2. Okay, we hit him for 2. We get Teferi, Time Raveler. Man, if I could play it with Counterspell backup, I absolutely would, but I'm not going to play it. Opponent cracks Flooded Strand, gets a Raugrin Triome, they untap, they play Castle Vantress, and they pass. We untap, we draw another Ragavan, dash Ragavan, go to combat, attack for 2. Is this Archmage's Charm? Shark Typhoon for 1. That's fine, and that's fine because I can Lightning Bolt the token. And I'm doing it prior to them drawing in case they were to draw like a Force of Negation. But like, look at the mana advantage I am generating right now. Exile a Memory Deluge, but I can't cast it. Pick up Ragavan. Like, the mana advantage is just insane right now. Okay, opponent is passing. We untap, we draw Bauble. Play Bauble. Bauble ourself. Sick, I'm drawing a Counterspell. Dash Ragavan. Go to combat. Attack for 2. They're going to cycle another Shark Typhoon. Bolt the Shark. They draw a card. We hit them for 2. We exile Solitude. Pass the turn. Pick up Ragavan. And on our opponent's upkeep, draw second Counterspell. Now I have Ragavan, Counterspell, and 4 more mana than my opponent does. That's pretty good. Opponent plays Chalice on 1. Okay. I will attempt to counter that. Opponent puts Kahira in their hand. Sure. We draw a Bauble. Play it. Bauble our opponent's top deck. It's Hall of the Storm Giants. So unfortunately, we're not going to get too much out of this dash, but we get some mana. Okay, pick Ragavan back up. We draw a card on our opponent's upkeep. Polluted Delta. This opponent is just going to play Kahira. Okay. I'm not going to counterspell that. We have a lot of stuff that can kill it. Flusterstorm's not a bad top deck. So play Polluted Delta. Dash Ragavan. Go to combat. Attack for 2. Opponent trades. That's fine. Now I can delve out a Murktide Regent and have Counterspell Flusterstorm back up. And I think I'm going to do that. because I can make this one big enough lethal. Okay. They crack Flooded Strand and go to 5. They untap. They play a Mystic Gate, excuse me. Supreme Verdict. Well, I can't counter that. Untap. We draw Archmage's Charm. Dash Ragavan. Opponent exiles Prismatic Ending for Solitude, so we're going to counterspell Solitude. Go to combat. Hit them down to 3. We exile a Breeding Pool. Pick up Ragavan, pass the turn. Okay, opponent goes to cast Big Teferi. So we got Archmage's Charm and hope they don't have Dovin's Veto, but if they have Counterspell, we Flusterstorm. Okay. So we counter Big Teferi, untap. We draw a Lightning Bolt, get him with the Bolt like we should have game 1. Okay. Okay. Yeah, I think we just run it back. That is why Ragavan is a broken card, because Ragavan was giving us enough mana to basically always have a counterspell. I think we just hit them 10 times with Ragavan, too. I don't think that, anything else crazy was happening. If this hand had a Steam Vents, this hand would be the most crazy hand we've had yet. They kept 7. I really don't want to mulligan, but I think I have to. Okay, I can work with this. I'm going to put back Brazen Borrower. I do have to kind of run out a Naked Monkey right now, though. I mean, we'll have Force of Negation back up if they try and Prismatic Ending him, but opponent leads on an island. We cannot protect him from Solitude, though, is the problem. Okay, opponent untaps. They play a Mystic Gate. They pass. We untap. We draw Murktide Regent, go to combat. Attack for 2. Wow, he actually connects. That's amazing. We exile a Flooded Strand and pass because we're on 1 land. Opponent untaps. They play a Plains. They pass. We untap. We draw Serum Visions. Go to combat. Attack for 2. Unfortunately, Blood Moon, not too good of a look right now. So that is the one thing that we can't answer with our current hand. So we have to consider and try and hit like a Lightning Bolt or an Unholy Heat. Put Bauble into the grave. Well, we got another Ragavan at least. But that's still not great. Alright. There goes Ragavan. Say goodbye, everybody. Pass the turn. I mean, we draw like a land and we're fine. There it is. Shock Steam Vents. We're just going to play the second monkey. So I can leave up Counterspell this turn. Now, if I dashed him, the potential for me to get something bigger out of it exists, but taking myself off of Counterspell is just, I think, unacceptable here. We need to get on board first. Archmage's Charm. Well, I'm going to Counterspell that because I am so desperate to have board presence. I think the dream is my opponent plays like Big Teferi this turn. Chalice on 1. Force of Negation, pitching Serum Visions. Because we are going to need to cast 1-mana spells this game. But if they counterspell this, we at least get to hit them with Ragavan. I'm not going to play Blood Moon, though. So, go to combat. Attack our opponent. Exile their Hall of the Storm Giants. Now, I really want to play Murktide Regent and try and close this game out quickly. But if my opponent has Supreme Verdict, we lose on the spot. So I'm just going to pass. Opponent plays an island and passes. We untap. We draw Expressive Iteration, which is a pretty good card to have in this position. Opponent goes for the Archmage's Charm. Try Counterspell. Mystical Dispute. Alright, opponent gets our Ragavan, which we will have trouble killing because all of our kill spells are 1 mana. Play Murktide. Pass the turn. We gotta somehow hope this Murktide can get there, and I don't think it can. Yep, that would be why. Yeah, so opponent got us with the double there. Expressive Iteration. We can put Archmage's Charm in our hand. I have a land in hand. I think it's better that we play Bauble, so we'll put the island back, play out the Bauble, play Flooded Strand, Bauble ourself. I do not want to draw a Lightning Bolt, because I can't play it, so I'm going to get a snow-covered island. Pass the turn. On our opponent's turn, we draw Murktide Regent. Opponent hits us for 5. We go to 17. They exile Murktide Regent. Yeah, that's game. we just have no way to answer this card. So, I mean, like, my plan was, if they didn't play a creature, I was going to try an Archmage's Charm to steal Ragavan back, and then maybe get some advantage that way. But kind of as it stands, the only thing I can do is not even that good. It's Archmage's Charm, target myself, draw cards, then play out a Murktide Regent. But, like, my Murktide will not even be as big as this Murktide. So, like, it's not going to swing past or anything like that. All right. I think that's game. So, unfortunately, I went 2 and 3. But in complete honesty, let me bring this up. That might be the worst I ever do with this deck. I don't think I will have a league that bad again. The first 2 matches, the Tron match that we lost, I think the Tron player got lucky. I think we were kind of playing in the middle of like our level of variance. The deck was running smoothly. Our opponent just top decked N+1 threats, which is what Tron does, to be fair. I'm not knocking the deck. I'm not saying Tron's a bad deck. I play Tron. I think this deck is far stronger than Tron. And I think in the overwhelming majority of matches versus Tron, I win. I think it's probably a 75% chance or higher that I win a Tron match, not just a Tron game. And then when we were on the play, it's even higher than that. So, like, both matches we lost, I think... The first 2 I'm talking about, not the control match I just played. The first 2 matches I played, I think both times I was on the draw, which does significantly hurt this deck's power. Which is insane because, like, even on the draw, we were having, like, crazy wins and stuff like that. So, yeah, this might be the worst I ever do with the deck, which is insane because, like, I just 5-0'd with it. Like, I should be able to... I'm not going to bring up the timestamps and show you. But I do have a screenshot in the on Discord of the trophies and stuff that I won using this deck. I sent it to the patron Miximcz, who requested this deck. So Miximcz, thank you for requesting this list. My wallet definitely hurts from purchasing Ragavans, but it's not going to cause me any harm. I don't know if this is the best configuration of this deck. That's completely honest. But I think this is the craziest tempo deck to have ever existed in Modern. I feel pretty comfortable saying that, because like I think anything that's faster that you would consider tempo is actually more combo. I think this is the fastest, quote-unquote, fair deck that exists. Big, gigantic quotes, because we're not doing anything crazy, we're not winning the game on turn 2, we are playing creatures and casting counterspells and kill spells, so like, that's what Magic generally is, but this is the most efficient version of that I think has ever existed in Modern. Even considering like relative power levels for Delver, relative power levels for like Death's Shadow, and this is probably what I'm going to grind Magic with if I play and decide that, I want to keep winning. Ragavan is definitely on a power level that is completely of its own, but I do want to say that I think as far as this deck goes, I'm not 100% sure on directly comparing the two, Dragon's Rage Channeler and Ragavan. And I don't think comparing them is necessary because they go in the same deck. Like, it's not like you're gonna, do I play Dragon's Rage Channeler or do I play Ragavan? That is never a thought you are going to have if you're building a deck that runs those cards. You play both. And the only reason you don't play both is because you can't afford Ragavan because it's $400+ for a playset. That's just how it is. But Dragon's Rage Channeler, in terms of making decks work, makes this deck work more than Ragavan does. It is more vital to Izzet Murktide functioning as a deck because of its power as an engine. So, like, turning our Considers into 2-mana Preordains that put 2 cards in the grave, Serum Visions, like, getting a Surveil prior to that, getting card advantage whenever we counterspell stuff because we can Surveil and be like, I don't want to draw this land, throw it away. This is the advantage engine that makes the deck consistent, and this is the advantage engine that makes the deck crazy powerful. And of course, this just closes the game more effectively than anything else. So, I think I made a couple of mistakes this league, but I definitely think this is the strongest deck I have ever played. So, anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed watching this video. If you did, please leave a like, drop a comment, subscribe to the channel if you're so inclined. And remember, you can follow me on Twitch. Same username over there as you find me on here. I stream Wednesdays in the afternoon, sometimes the evening. And recently, I have been streaming in the day on Sundays. I'm going to be trying to do that this Sunday, which actually may have been like yesterday if this comes out on Monday, or 2 days ago if this comes out on Tuesday. But yeah, Mixem, thank you again for requesting the list, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.